afternoon. This is the Blackman Who Reads Aloud, and today I am continuing my personal journey through the Federal Writers Project, the years 1936 through 1938, the interviews with our formerly enslaved ancestors. Today we're talking about or reading the recollections of Henry Garry. This interview was given in Birmingham, Alabama by W.F. Jordan. Mr. Renfro hangs on a chinaberry tree. Howdy, Captain. Can you tell me how to find Jidge Abscott? I know exactly where hit was in the old cot house, but I gets all bumfumbled trying to find anybody in this new building. His name was Henry Garry. He wore a suit of faded and extensively patched Confederate gray and a cap of the regulation Porter style. His face bore the expression worn only by those of his race who had lived and toiled in a much earlier, in many instances, happier day. In presence of white folks, he was at ease, indicating an intimate association and relationship among them and in their service. What business you have in Judge Abernathy's court? You don't look like a criminal, was the response. Oh, no, sir. I ain't never done nothing to nobody no time. But I sure don't know what this new generation of niggers coming to. It war bad enough when they couldn't get nothing but bootleg corn liquor. Now they can buy all the gin they wants right here in Birmingham. And them rascallions get out on the Saturday night and fill up on gin and get all lit up like a meeting house. Then the first thing they know, they get tangled up with somebody with a razor or a meat axe, and something and come along, the law locks them up and the devils to pay. But why should all that disturb you? They haven't run you in, have they? He was asked. No, sir. It's that trifling nephew of mine. That boy can sure get into more kinds of trouble than a pet monkey. He's in a jail now for some deliberate or other, and I expect I's gonna have to get him out again. That's what I's gonna see Judge Abbott about. Wish I could get that boy back down in Sumner County on Marsh John Rogers Plantation. That's where he belongs at. Betcha Marsh John wouldn't take none of this foolishness. Are you familiar with the people and history of Sumner County? He was quizzed further. Lord, Ma, I was born in the backyard where Marsh John Rogers lives right now. Right, that was right after the surrender, and my mammy belonged to the Vandegraff family, who used to lived on that and owned all that plantation. My daddy's name was Daniel Grady. They come from Virginia long time for the war. All them old peoples is dead now, and only kinfolks I have left down here is a cousin. She must have 100 years old and still lives on her little farm a few miles from Gainesville. And Captain, when I say libs, I mean libs. Ain't nothing that grown out of the ground nor in the ground in Alabama that's good for folks to eat. But what she's got it in a plenty. I goes down there to visit her twice a year, and man alive, hit a send amount of grub I put away and during them 2 weeks. I stays there, yes sir. I was about due to go down there now, 'cause the garden assassin spring chickens just about ripe. My mammy was a seamstress for the Vandergraff plantation and made all the clothes for both black and white. She never did leave the plantation after the slaves was free, but stayed right there till she died, and she and my daddy both. But they was good homes, respectable, church-going people. My daddy and mammy was. The little log church house is still there, and the nigger still keeps up the services. The old pastor, nearly 100 years old now, but it would surprise me. You how spry he gets about in conducting their meetings. I don't know about the other parts, but from what my mammy tells me, the slaves in Sumter County must have had a mighty good time, had plenty of everything and nothing to worry about. Seems like there weren't no trouble amongst the whites and blacks till after the war. Some white men come down from the north and mess up with the niggers. I was a mighty little shaver. I remember one night after supper, my mommy and my daddy and mammy and us children was sitting under the big tree by our cabin in the quarters when all at once, lickety split, here comes a galloping down the road what looked like a whole army of ghosts. Must have had been about 100, and they were men riding horses with them men, and horses both robed in white. Captain, them men looked like they 10 feet high, and them horses big as elephants. They didn't bother nobody at the quarters, but the leader of the crowd ride in the front gate and up to the big dug well back of our cabin and hollered to my daddy, "Come here, nigger." Whoa, course we scared. Yes, sir. Looked like our time had done come. My daddy went over to where he was sitting on his horse at the well. Then he say, "Nigger, give me a bucket and draw me some cool water." Daddy got a bucket and filled it up and handed it to him. "Captain, wouldn't you believe that man just lift that bucket to his mouth and never stop till it was empty? Did he have enough? He just smacked his mouth and called for more. Just like that. He didn't stop till he drunk 3 buckets full. Then he just wiped his mouth and say, 'Lordy, that sure was good. It was the first drink of water I had since I was killed at the Battle of Shiloh.' Was we good? Captain, from then on, there wasn't a nigger that stick his head out the door for a week. But next day we found out there was the Ku Kluxes, and they found the body of a white man hanging on a post oak tree over by Grand Prairie. His name was Billy, and he come from the north. He had been around Livingston messing up the niggers, telling them that they had been promised 40 acres of mule, and they ought to go ahead and take it from the white folk. But that carpetbagger couldn't do nothing with old Slick Doe Slick. Yes, sir. That's what everybody called him. He hang around the courthouse at Livingston and listen to the lawyer's orography. He tried to remember all the big words them lawyers use. When that carpetbagger come to town, that nigger Slick was carrying his bag to the hotel, and when they passed the mineral well in the street, the man asked Slick, "What that water for?" Had it been tested? Slick said, "Oh yes, sir, that water has been scandalized by the best phenologists in the country, and they say it's 3/4 carbonic acid gas, and the other 7/8 is hydrophobia." Yes, sir, that old cannon in the courthouse at Livingston was dug out of the Tomahawk River, where the Yankees done sunk it at the time of the war. The men used to load her up and shoot her off in the big days at Livingston. They had to spike it, the old gun dough, to keep the devilish boys around town from shooting it off just for fun. Get rid of the carpetbagger. Oh, yes, sir. They vote them out. Well, sir, tell you how they done that. The publicans done paid all the niggers poll tax, and give 'em a receipt so they could vote same as whites. They made up to select the officers at the courthouse, all niggers, and then send other ones to Montgomery to make the laws. Someday, same day the election come off, there was a circus in Livingston, and the Democrats swayed the boss man of the circus to let all the Sumner niggers in the show by showing the poll tax receipts. Yes, sir. When the show was over, the election was over too, and nobody was selected except the white Democrats, 'cause that made Sumner County a mighty unhealthy place for carpetbaggers and uppity niggers. You ask me about old songs the slaves used to sing. Well, I don't remember many of them. After the surrender, the old slaves that stayed on the plantation around Gainesville used to gather at the landing there waiting to see the steamboats pull in from down the Tombaji on their way to Columbus, Mississippi. If somebody start a song, and Lord, man, how them niggas sing. Here, one I heard my mammy sing so much I learned it. Read in the Bible, understand, Methuselah was the oldest man. He lived 969, then died and go to heaven in the Lord's due time. Methuselah was a witness for my Lord, for my Lord. Read in the Bible, understand, Samson was the strongest man. Went out to battle to fight one time, killed the thousands of them Philistines. Samson was a witness for my Lord, for my Lord. Daniel was a Hebrew child, went to the Lord to pray a while. The Lord told the angels the line to keep, so Daniel laid down and went to sleep. And that's another witness for my Lord, for my Lord. Now about them ghost tales, I never heard so many ghost yarns except about the China tree where they hung Mr. Steve Renfro. He elected high sheriff the time they got all the niggers to go to the circus instead of going to the election. He was a fine looking man and ride a big white horse, and everybody liked him a lot except the carpetbaggers and the bothersome niggers. No matter what, if he met one of them, he looked them square in the eye for a minute, then about all he would say was, "Get the hell out of here." And man, if they could fly, they would be too slow traveling for them, getting out of their country or their county. But after a while, he got into trouble about money matters. They say he got colorblind. Couldn't tell his money from the countess. So they arrested him and put him in jail, but he bust right out and run off. After a while, he sneaked back, and Craig's his Ku Klux Klan friends wouldn't help him out of the trouble. He was back in jail. He give him away and tell what their name was. One night, a gang took him out of Livingston jail and go about a mile out of town and hang him to a chinaberry tree. I've heard if and you go to that tree today and you kind of tap on it and say, "Renfro, Renfro, what did you do?" The tree say right back at you, "Nothing." No, sir. Folks down in Gainesville didn't pay much mind to signs and conjuring and all that stuff. My mammy wouldn't let us tow an axe on our shoulders through the house, and she wouldn't allow an umbrella to be opened in the house, said bring bad luck. She never failed to have a cow fill peas and hog jaws for dinner on New Year's Day. She say hit a sign you have plenty to eat balanced all the year. She put a ball of asafoetida on the string and make all our children wear it around our neck to keep off sickness. If a owl began to hoot over in Tomjibi bottom too close to the house, she would put the shovel in the fire to make him stop. Well, sir, I come to Birmingham most of 40 years ago when Joshua Marsh finished the Mars Hotel. I first run the elevators a while, then they worked me in the saloon, which used to be the back of the office. I've been here ever since. I expect about the last thing that'll happen to this old nigga will be to haul him away from the Mars Hotel in a black box. But Lordy, Captain, I got to get up to Judge Ebbs, cause listen, Captain, if and I gets that no count nephew out of jail, I sure would like to get him a job. You don't know nobody that wanna hire nobody to do nothing, does you? And that is the end of the reading for today. Thank you, the Black Man Who Reads Aloud, personal journey through the Alabama slave narratives.